Excellent. Thank you, everybody, and welcome to the Accounting High Achievers event for 2021. My name is Dr. Amanda White. I'm one of the deputy heads in the accounting discipline group at the UTS Business School, and we're really glad to welcome you here tonight for our Accounting High Achievers event. We thought maybe earlier this year we might have this event in person. Unfortunately, lockdowns mean that we've moved it virtual. But before we start, I'd also like to thank our sponsors, CPA Australia, who are here with us and have helped us organise a fantastic panel and a fantastic guest speaker. Now, of course, as part of the official formalities at any UTS event, we always like to make sure that we introduce or go through our Acknowledgement of Country. So I would like to acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, upon whose ancestral lands our city campus now stands. I would also like to pay respect to elders both past, present and emerging, and acknowledging them as the traditional custodians of knowledge for this land. I'd also like to acknowledge today I'm coming to the Zoom meeting from Darug country out here near Blacktown. And if you wish to acknowledge the country on which you're coming to our meeting from today, I welcome you to do so in the chat. So our session today is being recorded. You will be able to have access to the recording, or for anybody that missed it, we will record, of course, only the speakers and their audio and video. So we do ask that you stay on mute unless we invite you to have a question. Now, next up, to provide the opening address, I'd like to welcome Professor Sue Wright to the stage. Sue is the head of the accounting discipline group at the UTS Business School. Sue, take it away.
Thanks, Amanda. And I'm going to keep my opening address as short as possible because I've had a sneak preview at what's ahead and it's much more interesting than anything I'll say. So my task here is simply to welcome you all, to acknowledge how well you have performed in your studies under very difficult circumstances, as we all know, in the last year, the last 2 years really, studying online, if that's been you. And so to congratulate you before anybody else gets a chance on this great achievement that you've got for being recognised as being a high achiever. I'd like to thank my colleagues who've really made this possible. Even in a virtual environment, there's quite a bit of organising to be done behind the scenes. First of all, identifying you as the high achievers and organising the speakers and the panels. So my thanks go to Dr. Nelson Ma, Dr. Amanda White, and our administrator, Adrian Dadd. And I'd also like to add to Amanda's thanks to CPA for helping us engage with the great speakers that we've got lined up for the evening. So that's my welcome. Welcome, great to see you, and just so proud that we've got so many students who are so interested and so engaged and achieving so well in their accounting studies. I think it augurs well for the future as Australia and our economy starts to recover from our current situation. So that's my welcome. Enjoy the evening.
Thank you very much, Sue. And now on to our keynote address. And I'd like to introduce Emma Burke. Emma is a financial professional with over 20 years experience across multiple industries and geographic locations. Emma is a CPA and holds a bachelor's degree in manufacturing management, along with a master's in business with accounting and finance majors from UTS. She's also a graduate of the Australian Institute of Company Directors. Emma commenced her career in the FMCG, fast-moving consumer goods industry, in operational roles before transitioning into finance. She augmented her experience in Australia through regional-based roles in Hong Kong and Vietnam for a large multinational, and then transitioned into the Australian-listed environment at Coca-Cola Amatil before commencing at Stockland, a listed real estate investment firm. At Stockland, where she's been for 5 years, her role is responsible for all aspects of finance, operational and commercial, from transactional finance through statutory and management reporting and all commercial partnering to the business units, including mergers and acquisitions activity. So Emma, we'd like to welcome you to the stage to provide your keynote address.
Thank you so much, Amanda. Hopefully everyone can hear me okay. And I wanted to just echo the words of Sue in congratulating all of you here today for your amazing results, and also, you know, having to endure university in quite a different way than many of us who've been through uni have actually had to deal with it. The online world is a new one, and navigating it as well as you have is something that you should really, truly be proud of. Thanks so much for having me today, and I hope that over the next 20 minutes or so, I can talk to you a little bit about my career and how I've tackled it over the years, and some of the lessons I've learned and the approaches that have been really effective in helping set me up for success throughout that journey. As Amanda mentioned, I currently the GM of Group Finance at Stockland, which is a listed REIT, which spans all areas of the property business. We have businesses in the residential market, selling land and townhomes and the likes, but we also operate within the commercial property industry. So with retail, workplace and logistics properties that we manage and develop. So for me, I think one of the things that really I've loved about the role that I have at Stockland is that it deals with all aspects of finance. My role spans a large team, so I've got about 150 people, about 100 in Australia and about 50 based in our shared service team in India. And for me, ensuring that I can lead the finance function effectively in a range of different dealings has really come from the experience that I've gained over the years. It started with my university degrees at UTS, and then was coupled with education through CPA that helped me with those technical skills in it, but the bulk of it came from on-the-job learning. And I think for me, if I reflect on where I've come from and where I go to, where I am today, some of the challenges and the different things I had to navigate, I really look back at some of the things that I did in my early life and my early studies and early jobs that really set me up to enable me to stretch in my later career. To give you a bit of a feel for what my life is like at Stockland, I thought I might just give you a heads up on 2 days that I've experienced in the last month or so, just to kind of give you a bit of a feel of where I am now. And then as I talk a little bit more around my career and some of the lessons through that career, it will just give you a bit of a feel of then and now. So I just probably want to reflect on 2 days quite recently, which just really showed the extremes of my role. So the first is on the 16th of August, and I think it was a very a date that's probably impressioned in my brain forever. It was the Monday, and on the Friday we went to market with our results for the reporting year. So for any of you who have either interned or have had dealings with people who work in a listed environment, and I know Chris, who's on the line, definitely has seen this, the amount of work in that lead up to results is quite extraordinary, the efforts of everything. But for us that week was pretty special because not only were we sending out our results to the market, but we were actually closing the deal that Monday on acquiring a $600 million going concern business in a new segment of the property industry. And so for us trying to navigate the requirements to finalize results and the likes, and also then deal with a transaction of that value was quite a day that will definitely go down in the history books for me as a finance leader and for my team as well. You know, for me, they're the sorts of things, if I look from the, you know, actually some of the grads in the team all the way up to my senior finance leaders, the number of people who are involved in both of those activities in differing ways is really a testament to the skills that you learn in this finance and accounting profession. They can be really translated into so many different areas. And I think that's where it's just really important that as you kind of come out of your study, that you make sure you leverage it much broader than maybe the textbooks talk to you about how you can use those skills, because there are so many different ways that you can use them in a range of different ways, and it makes it quite exciting from my perspective. I think another thing, you know, even if I reflect on then as an alternative today, today was made up of, obviously I've got this evening, tomorrow, we've got our board meeting. So there is a bit of prep that needs to happen for that. We're going through a strategic review at the organisation because we've got a new CEO. So we've been having a number of different meetings on new strategic opportunities. We've had catch-ups from a team perspective around, do we have the right capabilities? What development things do we need in place for the team? But we've also got a number of other transactions in play in the organisation. So kind of keeping ourselves busy with a range of different things is what makes a finance role so exciting. Every day is a little bit different. So I know that's touched a little bit on more recently. I think now I'll probably take you back a little bit and talk to you a little bit more about my career pathway and some of the learnings that I've had during my career. As Amanda mentioned, I didn't actually start in finance. My career didn't start that way. Originally, my area of interest was actually manufacturing / engineering. So there was a course, a co-op program that was held at UTS a long time ago. It's no longer there, called manufacturing management. And that was the path I took. It was a mix between engineering and business. And it was, for me, that was really kind of an area that really intrigued me. My dad had been an engineer. And so I really liked the idea of more that operational aspect. So I did my university degree. It was a co-op one that was nighttime. So I actually worked full-time while I was at university. So I didn't have quite the same experience that some of you guys have, but at the same time, I know some of you are on co-op programs too. So you are actually working full-time and doing uni at night. And I think both of them give you slightly different experience of university, but both of them set you up well for the future. So for me, that was a really great opportunity, and I was in a really good graduate program that gave me the ability to kind of leverage those skills. But after a little bit of time, I kind of realized that operations wasn't quite for me, and having a very strong kind of maths background, I then spent a bit of time soul searching of what I wanted to do. I do remember at one point exploring maybe I should become a vet, until my mother did point out that my love for rescue animals was potentially going to be problematic if I became a vet. So I did eventually land in accounting, and I came back to my university of choice, which was UTS, to do my master's there, and I did finance and accounting. And I think for me, the leveraging those kind of technical aspects, as soon as I finished that, I worked full-time while I was doing that. So I was lucky that the organisation that I worked with actually enabled me to transition into the finance role while I commenced my study. And so that was a really good opportunity there. I then did my CPA straight after that. And at the time, by then, I think when I did my last CPA, or my second last batch of CPA, I was pregnant with my son, who's now 16. And my final ones were done, I think, with him as a newborn. So that's always a challenge. But I think the way CPA runs that program made it really actually quite easy for me to do that from a distance perspective. And I think the skills you guys have all learnt now about remote working will definitely, and that set you up well for that sort of thing going forward. But I still, and now you're going to start to hear the issues of my rescue pets in the background. Just give me one sec. Of course, the dog is now barking at the two kittens who are scratching at the glass door behind me that you can't see. And my two teenage kids who are upstairs doing nothing will unlikely step in to, split the two of them apart. So I think from my perspective, the technical aspects of the role are really critical. And so you've had this great grounding at university with those technical skills. You're likely going to go on to do some type of technical accounting, whether it's CPA or, the other one that we won't mention, being a CPA at heart myself. Those sorts of things is really important to get the right fundamentals, because even though now I look and the bulk of my role is in commercial finance and those sorts of areas, if I didn't have the technical understanding. I wouldn't be able to translate commercial outcomes into things that actually can to operate from a technical accounting perspective. So you really do need to be able to balance the two of them. So, you know, in my career, post my kind of base of knowledge and university and training and technical, I then had the opportunity to move through quite a number of roles. So as mentioned, I worked in, you know, technical accounting roles, and then I spent most of my time more in the commercial finance area. I was really lucky to get moved to Hong Kong into a regional operational finance role, looking after the factories across just over 10 regional markets in kind of Asia Pacific and the likes, which really gave me the opportunity to, I guess, leverage the skills I had, but also the different cultural dynamics across different organisations to really understand and, I guess, leverage diversity of thinking. So if you think of, at the moment, we focus a lot on making sure that we listen to different perspectives. When you add in different cultural nuances in regional teams, it becomes even more fundamental, because it is really important that you are open to listening to all different perspectives so you can make the best commercial decisions. So for me, you know, those opportunities in a multinational were really fantastic. But I got to a point too, being overseas. I moved to Vietnam after Hong Kong and was there for a number of years. My kids were at the age where I kind of really wanted to be around family. I wanted them to grow up with their cousins. And so that's when I took the opportunity to move to an ASX listed company, and I moved to CCA, Coca-Cola Amatil, and there's someone else on the phone who I worked with when I was there. It's always such a small world. And for me, that whole ASX listed environment is just something really different. Australia has such great finance professionals, and I've worked with some of the most amazing people throughout my career in different organisations in Australia. And I think now for me, as I've moved to Stockland about 5 years ago, I really love an organisation like Stockland that really has a great mission, fantastic values, and a particular, for me, which is kind of near and dear to my heart, that ESG focus around environmental and social and governance, making sure that as an organisation, you really give back, while also ensuring that your shareholders get value creation. So to me, that balance is really important when you look at different organisations that you work with. I think I might just turn kind of quickly, I know I'm just keeping an eye on the time too, around how through my career have I leveraged the tools around me to get the most out of my learning, to get the most out of my development. And I think one of the things that I would call out to you guys that's so critical is leveraging your network to support your own development and to stretch yourself. Throughout my career, I've really relied on coaches and mentors to really seek feedback and ask for advice and ask for support. And I think one of the most valuable resources that you have are actually sitting in the room with you now. And I know it's a virtual room, it's not a real room, but I think if you think about your peers, whether they're your peers from university or your peers from your first role, you need to leverage them. Leverage each other to grow. Some of you will have strengths in some areas, some of you will have strengths in different areas. Together, we get the best outcomes if we work collaboratively and work together. But, you know, sometimes what I see is people can get a bit caught up in that whole competition with peers, but, you know, really, you've got to think of it as you're all in the one tribe, and therefore, if one of you lifts, you all lift. The competition is not about getting ahead of one another. The competition is around pushing each other to be the best that each of you can be. And I think if I look, particularly in my early years, I still am really close with the peers that I worked with who really had my back, gave me the hard advice that I didn't want to hear, told me when I was being a bit of a, you know, prima donna or the likes, or all those different things. And I think that is one of the things that I would say to you. Make sure you don't lose touch with that. Make sure you continue to work together. Keep those relationships going. Life gets busy, but if you let them go, you'll really miss them. But I think the other thing that I would say is it is really around attitude. Attitude is everything. And if it is that curiosity, the listening, I talked earlier around, you know, diverse points of views, asking questions, integrating and really being part of a team, like caring about what other people's perspectives are. They're the sorts of things that, you know, having that kind of attitude is what makes, you know, the more senior or your people in other teams kind of notice you, and not in a way that you do it to be noticed, but in a way that you're perceived to be someone who can get the best outcomes, who can drive the business to greater things. And so making sure you focus on that is really important. And I think when I look back at my career, the things that I did, there are lots of things I didn't do well, let's be honest, we all make mistakes, but the things that I think I always did well on was around seeking feedback regularly, not second guessing myself too much. Like if I really had trust in myself to back myself, if I wasn't sure, you know, bounce it past a friend or a colleague, but then back myself, be curious and ask lots of questions, put my hand up and volunteer for things. So when there was a project, and even if I was busy, I would put my hand up. I would take the role that wasn't on the plan. So when someone there was an opportunity for a role that was not quite what my career path was all set up with, I took it as an opportunity. It was kind of more playing what I would call play the long game rather than the short game, because it was those roles, if I look back, it was those roles that were a little bit off the track, which really gave me the opportunities to learn new things, to push myself harder, and I guess grow into areas that I probably wouldn't have imagined previously. You know, at the moment there is such a push around how do we ensure in organisations that we, you know, are more diverse and inclusive, and that's not just around sorry, my voice is going, not just around male and female diversity, it's around style diversity, it's around different approaches, introverts, extroverts, it's around cultural nuances. And I think we're all part of that journey around making sure that whatever is our natural way, that we are open to other people's ways, that we take the time to be considerate and thoughtful of how we be inclusive. And for someone like me, I'm quite extroverted. So for me, that is around making sure I ask for other people, the quiet voices, to talk. But then for the introverted people too, it is around sometimes having different approaches to how you get the most out of an extrovert who might be talking all the time and therefore not letting others in, or even not being able to process something because they actually need to take some time to reflect. So I think for me, it really is all around, you know, being kind to yourself, but being authentic and being able to be a little bit self-reflective on what are you good at and what is not your natural way. And then for those things that aren't natural, push yourself to try things. Push yourself, you know, I still, just being honest, I still have little post-it notes that you can't see it because of my background. I have post-it notes on my keyboard, even now, that remind me of certain things that are my natural tendencies that I don't want to do. So just to push myself to continually develop. So there's some of the things that I would just say, you know, you've got this great world ahead of you and all these opportunities. Make sure you leverage all the different parts of it. I know we're kind of coming up to the finish. There's probably just a couple of things I wanted to touch on. And one was just when I reflect on the accounting and finance profession and how it's changed from where we are today to where we were. And I think if you think of it around, you know, I think it's a Deloitte phrase, so I'm probably stealing their language. They talk around value preservation and value creation. And I think if you think back maybe 20, 30 years ago, there was probably a view, and maybe it was not just a view, but maybe the way people operated, that there was a greater focus from a finance or accounting professional on that preservation, the kind of control and stewardship and making things work really efficiently, and not so much on that value creation arm, which was more around the performance and the strategy and the execution being a catalyst and the likes. And I think that's probably the thing that keeps pushing. That the balance still needs to be there, because to be a true finance professional, if you don't ensure you have those controls and the efficiencies, you can't actually then focus on the value add part. But I think the scales have probably tipped a little bit around the role of finance going forward. I think some of those, the expectations of finance professionals now are much more than just the technical person, but it is around someone who can take that technical skill and convert it into creating commercial value for an organisation. And so that's the opportunity you guys all have now to take that accounting mantle and kind of make the most of it going forward. And so I think that's one of the joys I get from finance. I'm not probably a big technical person, but I love being able to leverage the technical bits to get the most value for an organisation. And that is something that still sticks with me throughout. But I probably just, last thing, I think, don't overthink yourself. You're at a great point in your careers. You've got a lot of time to explore things. Make sure you find the things you're passionate about. Make friends, try different roles. Make sure you pick the things that you love, but also push yourself to stretch yourself as well. And I think the one thing that I learned the most in my career was around not being too fixed on one pathway, really being open to the opportunities that present themselves. Because if you're too certain on where you want to go, then you waste a bit of that journey time in enjoying and exploring different things. It's not much different. To me, a career should be like a holiday. It's got to be the balance of the set destinations that you want to visit, so the touristy sites, but also just getting lost and exploring. And if you don't have that balance, if you think about those holidays that have been the most special, they are the balance between those two. And I think for me, that my career, the enjoyment comes from that balance. And so make sure that you push yourself. You've obviously all as a group, as high performance, have really pushed yourself to excel in something. And I hope you love it as much as I do. I'm a all-in finance professional now. I wouldn't want to be anywhere but where I am. But it's been a great opportunity. And I think I would say that both UTS and CPA have really helped ground me through that career. And so I think you guys are in a really good spot coming out of UTS with your degrees. So thank you. I might leave it there. It's been a bit one way, and hopefully going forward we can have some questions and the likes for the panel.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Emma. And you can give your virtual round of applause using the reactions button there. I really love the travel metaphor about how it's part of that journey as well as getting to that destination. So thank you so much to Emma. Now we have our panel. And if you want to see all of the panel, I'll do the introductions, but then we'll go off the slides. You can always put your view into gallery view rather than speaker view to see everybody all at once. Now, I have a great pleasure to introduce our panel today. And I know three of these people personally from when they were students, which means I've been here for a very long time. But our first panelist is Chris Thompson. Chris is the finance director at The Iconic. If you've ever online shopped, then you will know who I'm talking about. And prior to that, he spent 13 years at Coca-Cola Amatil, starting as a commercial analyst and eventually becoming financial controller, Australian Beverages, and later head of finance national customers. Chris completed the Bachelor of Accounting at UTS in 2005. And I'm proud to say that I was on Chris's interview panel when he was young and applying for the BAC. We're really proud of what he's achieved here at UTS. Next, we have Emma, who you've all heard from, so I don't need to introduce Emma again. Then we have Dave Walker, and Dave is the head of sales, finance, and financial planning and analysis at Kimberly-Clark. Prior to that, Dave has held multiple roles at Unilever, starting as a sales analyst, working for Unilever in New Zealand before time in the UK in finance, including financial controller of TIGI International, one of Unilever's subsidiaries in the hair and beauty industry. And Dave also is a graduate of UTS in about that same era. I can't remember the exact year. I should have checked that up. And then very last but not least, we have Dr. Rebecca Bachmann. Rebecca is a postdoctoral research fellow at UTS, and her research is focused on corporate governance and females on boards, with her work published in the highly rated Accounting and Finance Journal and also featuring in the Australian Financial Review. Many students who are here may know Rebecca from her tutoring in accounting for business combinations, and she's been rated as one of the business school's strongest performing tutors by students. So a big welcome to everyone who's here on our panel. And Nelson, I might get you to stop sharing the slides and we'll go into the gallery view so you can see all of our fantastic panelists here. And we've got a whole lot of questions that have come in from students and as well as other questions that we thought might be really interesting. So my first one, everybody talks about, there's always some doom and gloom story that AI and computers are going to absolutely, change accounting. It's going to make accountants redundant. So how much of the accounting industry do we think is going to be automated over the next coming years and decades? And what's that going to look like for us? I don't know who wants to go first. You just unmute.
I might go first. So, hi, Amanda. 2004 is when I graduated. And accounting for business combinations is bringing back all sorts of repressed, horrible memories. Oh, man. It's an interesting question. And you joke with auditors all the time that they're going to be just a laptop in coming years. But I think that's not necessarily true at all, because I think tech only takes you a certain part of the way. You got to understand that like technology's only as good as the programming that kind of goes into it, and then at the end of the day, there's a human behind that making combinations, etc. And specifically talk about audit. If you make a set of rules and combinations that companies can abide by in order to cheat the system, etc., then auditing falls down and assurance falls down. There's a human element that's going to be behind that at all times, as a sort of a fail-safe, not a sail-safe. And then within sort of business and talking about creating value, I think AI is a long way off that. In fact, one of the problems that we have is we almost have too much data and not enough time and human resource to actually seek the insights out of that data. And it's only then once a human interacts with it that it then flows into the business decisions and that ultimately adds value for the company.
Fantastic. Chris, your thoughts?
I was just going to add, I mean, Dave's right with what he's saying, and I was just to build on that a little bit more. But one of the challenges also is that a lot of the AI and automation, robotics, it relies on quality of data, which often is a struggle for a lot of organizations. So when people come and we meet with them quite regularly around what this program or software has to offer, and it all sounds good, but in terms of the way you apply it to your organization and bring it to life, there are a lot of operational challenges. And so there's a lot of cleanup that's needed to really get the most out of these programs. That's not to say, I think this is definitely an area for opportunity, and there's incredible developments in technology. And I think it's we should always be looking out for these changes and challenging ourselves in terms of our own internal processes. So there's no doubt it's going to have an impact. It's probably a challenge for organizations to be quick to adopt the technologies. And one of the things that we're looking at right now is finding a role within our finance function that is focused on, you could call it process improvement, but a lot of it is also around the automation. And we're leveraging technology to better improve the way we do things, but also to what Dave said, it's around getting better insights out of the data that we do have. But by freeing someone up internally who's got that business knowledge and sort of a tech background, helps give the company the opportunity to I guess, scope the market and see what makes sense for the organisation.
It seems like every vendor has some sort of pitch that's going to revolutionize what you're going to do and make life easier. A question here for Emma, because this comes from a student who's studying 2 degrees. They're studying engineering and business. What sort of opportunities do you think the industry provides for students that have this background in different areas? And this engineering student is studying mechatronics specifically, but what about these people that think, oh, well, I'm doing 2 degrees. Is that going to help me in an accounting and finance role?
Yeah, I think from my perspective, having a balance between kind of the more operational type of areas or the logic and reasoning spaces like engineering, kind of sometimes can balance it's a more pragmatic approach, while a finance and accounting discipline is more theoretical and insight, like data driven, if that makes sense. And so to me, I think if I look at the way we recruit at a grad level or even in our roles across the organisation, we're not fixed on one discipline, if that makes sense. So obviously, if we're considering someone in the finance team, or we're considering someone in the property team, we do look at what their background is, but it's more around where their interest and curiosity lies that's important. If they end up going into a path that requires some type of professional qualification, we'll support them on that pathway. And so I think from my perspective, I think having had a dual focus probably didn't help that much when I was more junior, but I do think now when I look at the roles and the things that I have to deal with when they really cross more strategic operational aspects, that kind of operational background, I am able to leverage those aspects of it. So I think if you've taken the time and the effort to do a double degree, you're definitely not going to regret it. But at the same time, I don't think it's not a must-have, but I do think it will set you apart and will help you better leverage both those skills in your career path.
I think that's one of the things that often people say, oh, we're interested in taking engineers, lawyers into the accounting profession. It's for those just broad different ways of thinking as well that come from having different types of degrees. Now, one for Chris here. Chris, how did you know that going into a commercial role in accounting was what you wanted to do? I'm sure when you were a graduate, you would have looked at lots of different types of roles in that final year of your degree. How did you know that commercial was the way you wanted to go?
That's a good question. So coming out of university, I probably had an idea of what I did want to do and what I didn't want to do. So I knew I was looking at those commercial organizations because that for me, that was what I was attracted to in terms of working with products, and there's no greater product than Coca-Cola. So I was a big fan of the product. So that's what I did. So yes, you're right. Like accounting is very, very broad, and you can end up in many different industries and organizations and different roles within the organization. That's one of the beauty, one of the things that's great about accounting is it can take you in many different places. For me, the commercial companies was what I wanted, but then when you're in the one organization, there's a lot of decisions also in terms of what roles you take, and I think Emma touched on it as well around try new things and be open to opportunities, and don't be so stuck on a particular pathway. And I think that's great advice because you don't know what's out there. Like when you're at university, you don't have a clue in terms of what the roles are and where you can end up. And I think that's, so have an open mind, and as the opportunities are there before you, take them and learn from them, and don't necessarily chase your dream job day one. Use the opportunities in front of you to learn from each experience that you go through.
Fantastic. And Chris, what major did you do with accounting in your undergrad degree?
I don't know if you want to go down this path.
That's okay.
I did. Yeah, so with accounting, I was planning on doing, I think, international business, but then I changed my mind halfway through and wanted to go on exchange. And so I think I ended up just doing I was a sub-major in international business studies or something like that. So yeah.
Dave's laughing. Dave, what did you choose as did you do another major or sub-majors and electives?
Two sub-majors, but it was something like that. International management, I think it was called at the time. And I did HR as well. I think.
And so have those come in handy in your roles since then?
I think the HR one definitely, weirdly. It's a point I was going to raise, but the more you work, the less accounting you do and the more people management you do. And so just reflecting on my time at university, the bit that I kind of liked it, but the bit a lot of people hated was the group work. I liked it because I was in a course where my group work meant that I was dealing with people who were much smarter than me. And so I got great marks. But you have to realize when you go into the workforce, it's all group work. And you have to get along with people. And in fact, a lot of the time you're judged based on the performance of not just yourself sitting an exam. And so actually understanding yourself and understanding other people and understanding how to get the most out of people becomes the most important thing.
Well, that actually leads right on to another question that a student sent in that said, somebody has accepted a grad role at PwC in business restructuring for next year. And do you have any advice on working at a big organization? And you mentioned group work, which definitely I know students are always complaining to me about group work and Slack group members, or I'm the one doing all the work. And they sort of hate it. But would anybody have any tips? I don't know, Chris or Emma, what tips might you have for going to work at a big organization, and how do you take those first steps, tips on how to succeed?
I might jump in. I think what Dave was talking about is quite important. It is around, I think when I talked about it a little bit, it's around curiosity, and not just curiosity in the job, but curiosity in the people you're working with, because the way to build relationships is through interest, and you get that through being curious about a person and learning about them. And if you think about, that it is so true in the work environment, there will regularly be in the work environment that one person who doesn't come to any of the meetings, but is the one who will present it at the end like it was all their work. So you have to get used to dealing with people, and you have to be able to have those constructive conversations. I'm sure some of you have had to have it with group members in university as well. And so I think understanding relationships, if you ever have to have a difficult conversation, it all starts with the relationship you have. And so if I would turn to yourself starting at PwC, I would say it is around making sure that you balance learning about what your job is with also learning about the people that you're working with. And it's not just their social things, but what interests them, what are they really good at, how can you learn from them, going back to that whole peer interaction. And likewise with your potentially being a team, your manager, around how you work with them to help you develop around, making sure that you do have a development plan, that you actually think about what you want to focus on, and kind of hold yourself accountable to it. It's very easy to get really busy and then just kind of roll into doing your day job. But if you don't spend enough time on the interactions and the relationship building and also developing yourself, you won't get the most out of it.
Guys, jump in as well. So just going off the back of what Emma was talking about with development plans, like a bit of practical advice, I would say if you're starting at a big business, one, understand what your targets are for the year, because oftentimes you'll be dragged away from those targets in that first year, and you'll get to December and you'll be in your performance review and they'll go, well, how did you do against your targets? And you go, well, I had to do all this other stuff over here that you were asking me to do. And if you've got a good boss, it won't matter, but if you've got a bad boss, it will. So just be conscious of that. Also, be conscious of how the business assesses potential. Seek out that framework that managers use to talk about potential within the business and understand what those behaviors look like. Because a lot of time it comes, those conversations, those sort of succession planning, etc., comes down to sort of, do they build trust, or do they, I don't know, some sort of jargon buster thing, but understand what they are and how your behaviors dovetail in with those matrices.
Fantastic. That's great advice. I think with students and assessments, we always say, look, make sure you understand the criteria of how we're assessing you. And that translates right there into the workplace. I want to ask a question of Rebecca now, because Rebecca, you have experience in accounting. You've done internships. Tell us about what you did in your undergraduate program. You studied accounting as a major, but what else did you study?
Yes. So yeah, as you said, I did an accounting major, but I doubled that with a finance major as well. So no sub majors, two double majors. Perhaps I ended up with those two almost in a process of elimination, just because at the time I didn't really know, one, what accounting was. Perhaps I thought I had a better understanding of what finance was. But then looking back at it now, even in the beginning of that, I really didn't know what the degree was going to be about. So yeah, just going into it, I knew nothing. And that kind of took me on this journey trying to discover what is accounting, what is finance, how do we apply it. So as part of my undergraduate degree, I did 2 internships, both of which were overseas, which just shows you that accounting, I know it's perhaps cliche, but it is the language of business. It can be applied all over the world. And yeah, one of them was in India. And that one was more on like a social enterprise, trying to use business knowledge to help the education system there, just to provide better education in rural villages. And the second one was perhaps more traditional in business. That was for a dairy company actually in Indonesia. So there we were asked to create a business plan to help them identify how they could enter the market in Indonesia. And yeah, having an understanding for accounting was definitely really, really helpful for both of those. It just shows that accounting is more than numbers. Yeah.
And so you had obviously opportunities to take a graduate job, and instead you chose to do an honours degree and then a PhD. What is the appeal of doing research?
Yeah, as you say, it's probably not the most common pathway. I think quite often, especially in accounting and finance, I think there is this goal or perhaps pressure to end up in one of the ASX listed firms or one of the big 4 accounting firms. But the more I sort of went on in my degree, I just discovered actually that the more I learned, the more I knew that what I didn't know, if I can put it that way. So I was like, I want to know more about this. I want to know what else you can do with accounting that's more than just debits and credits, which is where the honours program comes in. In the honours program, we basically, we assume that we know debits and credits, but we don't really use them on a daily basis anymore. It's more using accounting understanding to ask bigger research questions. At the time, I looked into executive compensation, trying to figure out how do we compensate the CEO, what are their performance targets, what are effective performance targets, which, thinking back to first year MIA, was definitely not something I thought you could do with an accounting degree. Yeah, and then in the honours program, I just realized that I love researching. Once you start answering questions, as I said, more questions pop up. So it's kind of this evil circle that never ends. Like you finish one project and it's like, okay, I've finished this question, but hang on, that raises another question. Well, let's continue with that question. And there you have an academic sort of starting career. You keep asking questions and they never end. So I think I
love that curiosity. Yeah, curiosity is what drives all of us in academia and, in business as well. Emma mentioned that curiosity, partially to learn more about your co-workers, but also why is this? Or why is this system doing this? Why doesn't the data tell us what we think we should know? So a lot of students, at university, we cover quite a lot of content, but quite often students will look at graduate recruitment information or job advertisements and think, what else do I need to know? So to the panel, do you have any advice on any practical skills students should gain while they're studying? Like, do they need to know a particular accounting software package? Are there any skills that you think students should focus on picking up, maybe data analytics or anything else while they're at university to help them once they go out into the world as graduates? Don't know who wants to jump in first.
I'll go quickly on a couple. So I'm not sure if it's core to the syllabus, but Excel will be very key. We had a grad join us this year, and there were lots of whispers going, "He doesn't even know Excel," like this kind of stuff. I was like, "Oh, okay," but it's kind of a thing that you can pick up very quickly. But I'm sure it's part of the syllabus. Specifically within that, like sorting and ordering data, pivot tables kind of things are going to be like the bread and butter for the first few months of the job. So refresh that. The second thing, it sort of harks back to my previous comment about people, is spend some time on reflecting on yourself and your personality, and go and do some free online personality tests like Myers-Briggs, just to understand yourself a little bit better in social and work settings. It'll take no time at all. And I think if you can go in armed into the workforce with that, it'll be a big step up.
And Dave, what's your favorite Excel function?
I'm in awe of people who can do index match, because I'm a Luddite. I'm like a VLOOKUP, and I see an index match, and I'm like, this guy knows what he's doing.
Emma or Chris, any other specific skills you think students should pick up while they're at uni?
I think don't overthink it too much. I think some of those things that Dave spoke about are good, like Excel and that, but going much further than that, I just think, you've already got your university course. You'd be better spent as well just making sure that you balance it with your social activities, and if you've got any part-time work you're doing, those sorts of things, they'll all teach you good skills, whether it's, team sport or those sorts of things. They're the sorts of things that I think can also supplement. But I do think Excel's a good one, because I think that will just make you feel more confident on day one. I don't think it's critical, so don't stress if you don't have it, but I just think it will build your confidence a little bit. But if not, you'll find that there's a network of either current grads or analysts in the team who will be very happy to coach you, so long as you're open and you ask for help. So yeah.
And thank goodness for YouTube sometimes in trying to figure out index match or other tools. Chris, anything that you would recommend?
Yeah, I mean, I'd echo what Emma was saying. I think it's one of the things, make the most of being at university and enjoy your time and your studies. And it's not something that we'll be assessing when it comes to the interviews. You're looking at the whole person, and we talk about attitude being really important. That's the stuff that you keep an eye out to see that there's evidence of this person is passionate about what they're doing, and they're keen to learn, and they're someone that we want to work with. So those are things that are really crucial, less about the technical, because you'll learn a lot of that on the job. So it's not something you need to overly be concerned about.
How important is being able to do a bank reconciliation?
Eventually.
Eventually, okay.
Not on day one, but the thing I'd say to people, that the technical component is important, yes, but you learn that, and you'll be learning that for a long time coming. When I look at people around me, both at my time at Coke and at the Iconic, the ones that I admire and I see do really well, Emma's, a lot of people said the same. Curiosity matters. It makes a huge difference, because if you're curious, you'll get in, you'll ask the right questions, you'll be open to learning, and you'll perform better. And the other element is passion. So be passionate about what you're doing, and put those two together, and you get someone who will learn the technical component, and will just thrive in their job.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much to everybody on the panel. Big virtual round of applause. Now I'm going to hand over to Nelson, who is going to share, because I don't trust myself to read out all the names, our little video here. So congratulations, and thank you also to our students who volunteered to share some of their thoughts in this video as well.
I am very excited to be a recipient of the High Achievers Award for Accounting for Business Decisions A and B. For me, accounting was a new and challenging area of study, and so I feel this award is a reflection of the hard work and dedication that I put into both subjects. I know that accounting is a core component of any business, and so I feel that completing these subjects has armed me with a heightened commercial awareness that will aid me in fulfilling my future career goals.
So what this award means to me is the recognition of a particular mindset among certain students, and that is one of a dedication to continual growth and improvement, as well as one of an overall academic curiosity and love of learning that fuels the drive to achieve our goals. And in particular, in terms of my own goals, or at least my short-term goals, I would love to land myself an accounting internship and then use that as the launchpad for a career in accounting.
This award really endorses my ability to achieve at whatever I set my mind to, through commitment and hard work. Yet, it's also important to acknowledge the role that Tia, my Accounting B lecturer, and Monica, my Accounting B tutor, played in educating me, and the important implications that had for my success in the subject. This award really affirms my career choice, and is motivating in the sense of propelling me forward to achieve in whatever I pursue, be it university, my career, or other commitments. Thank you.
I would like to thank the UTS Accounting Discipline Group for giving me this award. I'm very delighted to have received it. It reminds me that there's no limit to excelling, especially when you believe in yourself. It also reminds me that there's a lot of opportunities ahead at UTS, including in accounting. This makes me very excited to continue my studies.
You can share it. So congratulations again to all of our award winners. And we're going to close off firstly by also thanking our keynote speaker, Emma Burke, and also our panelists, Chris Thompson, Dave Walker, and Dr. Rebecca Bachmann. And I'll now hand over to Sue Wright, Professor Sue Wright, who's going to officially close our proceedings.
Thanks, Amanda. I think we're pretty much on time, which is really excellent, because in this 1 hour, you have had so much wisdom, reflection, so much honesty and frankness about the careers of 5 very successful, or was it 4? 4 very successful accounting graduates from UTS. So I really want to thank Emma particularly for sharing just how exciting accounting is. I don't think she mentioned the words account, debit, credit, or balancing at all in talking about the excitement, the values, the challenges, and the ways in which she really reflects and continually works to improve her ability to be herself and to do her very best in her career. And I think from the panel, I ran out of paper to take notes on. I was just getting so many ideas from it. But I think the challenge I would give to all of you is, if you're going to major in accounting, and I do hope that you are, what would be your favourite pick to choose to add to your accounting? Or what would be a sub-major that you might pick? Because it seems to me that there's any number of areas that would really combine well with accounting to give you every chance of a successful, happy and diverse career in the future, whether it's from diversity of the work that you do, working in groups, managing people, as well as international communication strategy, etc. So I think you've got fantastic opportunities ahead. Perhaps the biggest challenge you're going to face is choosing what to do next, what to do first, what to do second. But all the best with those choices. And thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you very much, Sue. A big thank you also to CPA Australia, who helped us organize our fantastic panel. And I can see some of our CPA reps here as well. So a big thank you to all of them. Thank you and congratulations again to all of you and to our panelists. We hope you have a great evening, and cheers here's to all of you for such a fantastic job, especially in the trying conditions. Congratulations again.